The gaming industry is being invaded right now, and gamers absolutely love it. And this is just showing the clear state of the gaming industry today, where gamers are searching for anyone to save them from the pile of mishaps and disasters that have been happening in the gaming industry this past few decades when it's come to the actual quality of the games themselves and the product that has been coming out from the Western gaming studios. The standard has dropped so much for a lot of these AAA titles. People are cheering on their sale right now. That's exactly what we're seeing with the Assassin's Creed franchise, as we see it being captured and changed into something new by new investment groups. And this is the thing people were clear to see happening in the gaming industry. And usually in the past, we used to deride this happening, but now gamers are all in and support of this change. And it's leading to massive layoffs of legacy leaders of franchises. And this is what we're seeing happening with Assassin's Creed as they change up the people that are actually leading and directing the game, because they see it as essential to purge the ranks that have created the current state of Ubisoft. And the current state of Ubisoft is a version of Ubisoft that has to kick out its franchise lead for Assassin's Creed, Mark Alexis Cote, who was at the head of this franchise for over a decade. And this is kind of the situation we've been seeing happening all across the gaming industry, a purging of the talent that has been there sabotaging the gaming industry for the past decade or so. And it doesn't matter if you're a person that's been there from the beginning. If you're there now and you're leading to the deterioration of the industry that you're in hot water. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Assassin's Creed franchise as it changes pace. And if you don't know anything what happened with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed, well, Assassin's Creed Shadows happened. Assassin's Creed Shadows is the most recent release from Ubisoft, and it was a complete disaster, a sales disaster to be precise, because no one really wanted to buy the game. And I think we saw that with the Steam numbers. We saw that with the conversation online. People were dissatisfied with the game itself, and it was controversial. It tried to deride and ridicule the country it was trying to represent, Japan, by saying you're a racist slave colony, when all of this was hearsay and lies. And this is the situation we saw play out with Ubisoft as it released a failure of a title, and the stock tumbled until it had to actually reach for a bailout from a company like Tencent. Tencent is a Chinese company, and we saw them buy a 50% stake in Ubisoft, becoming its largest shareholder, and their subsequent firing of over 20,000 people and staff globally, reducing the overall size of the productive staff that is working on video games, spinning it out into Vantage Studios, which now only has 2,000 people working on all their legacy titles from Assassin's Creed to Rainbow Six. And this is a situation we are seeing continuing happening across the gaming industry, where we're having gigantic foreign companies come in, invading the gaming space and kind of changing it into the way that gamers have always wanted to see change. They wanted to see the people that are ahead of this disastrous part in the gaming history to be kicked out. And that's what we're seeing with Alex Cote kicked out of his position of director of Assassin's Creed. And this is kind of a hallmark of a generation that has been lost in the sauce of producing content for people that really don't like gaming. And I think that is the thing that is leading for a lot of these foreign companies to take advantage of the actual inability of current Western gaming studios of actually producing content for a gaming audience. And you can see this clearly with Assassin's Creed Shadows. As I mentioned before, they ignored the cultural standards. They wanted to focus on a 2020 George Floyd-like assassin. I know people are going to say Yasuke was real. Yes, he was a real servant for 1 year until he was sent back to Portugal. He wasn't a samurai. He carried swords. It wasn't real. And I think the thing is, people would have been able to accept it, but Ubisoft wants the story to be real, so they kind of disrespected Japan in their presentation of the game. And of course, Japan is not going to buy a game from a studio that disrespects them. And of course, gamers already know the origin of the game itself, where they're more about representation than the actual quality of the game. And that's what people saw as a symbol as, because people, I think in the past, would have loved playing a game like this if it didn't take itself so serious, if it didn't take itself as a representation of American values in Japan. And that's the thing. People are frustrated with the game itself, where we had all these LGBTQ representative relationships, things that were unnecessary for an Assassin's Creed game at the forefront of this game, and it kind of distracted people from the actual quality that they wanted from the game. There was some things that were enjoyable about the game, but the game lost itself in its own perfunctory moral standards, its moral grandstanding that gamers are just not there for. And I think that's the thing that we keep seeing with these franchises that are coming out. They're more interested in producing content that is representative of what they want to see in the modern day society rather than actually making things that gamers really want to play. And I think that's what we saw with Assassin's Creed Shadow. This is what we saw from the team of Ubisoft. They were more focused on transgenerational relationships rather than the actual gameplay, where they even update the gameplay a few months later because it just didn't move smooth enough. It didn't have the original Assassin's Creed jumping or climbing standards, so they had to even update it because they ignored the quality of the game to focus on these cultural elements. And I think that's the thing that we see usually with these gaming studios that are oversized in the West, where they're just not even focused on things that the gamers actually want to play. And I think that's the problem with a lot of studios today. They don't know what they're making anymore because they don't care about it. They just care about its representation of their personal ideologies, and if it is a suitable standard bearer of what they believe is right and wrong. And this is what we also saw with EA, Electronic Arts, being bought up by a Saudi Arabian firm in the Middle East, where they purchased this video game developer for over $55 billion. And of course, this purchase is scaring people at studios that have the same representation focus on their overall production of video games. And of course, I'm talking about BioWare. BioWare is panicking because they believe Saudi Arabia doesn't have their values, which is correct to think that way because they don't have the current values that we see right now from BioWare and a lot of these studios that are more hyper-focused on representative politics. And I think that's the scary thing that we see with a lot of studios that are coming out right now, seeing a change in the overall atmosphere in gaming, where they're being purchased by foreign companies that do not want to see their representative politics at the forefront of gaming. And that's what we saw with BioWare after its major failed game, Dragon Age Veilguard, where the fans were calling out the studio for ignoring the lore and the overall cultural environment of Dragon Age to be more focused on their personal modern day ideals of what they want to see represented in the real world. Of course, we all saw the popular non-binary conversation where we're talking about pronouns and all these other things that are nonsense to the gamers, but this is the essential thing that we see from the people creating these games. They're more focused on their current status and their gender preference rather than the things that are actually interesting. You see this with the game director for Dragon Age, where they transitioned in the middle of the game and the whole game was about their transition. And no one really cared about that. This had nothing to do with the Dragon Age world, and it makes no sense in the Dragon Age world. And I think that's the thing people were stuck up on when we saw Dragon Age become more about personal idealism and representation rather than the game's lore in and of itself. And that is the thing gamers are cheering on when we hear about purchases of these studios. We're going, hey, we like this. We want to see BioWare destroyed. We want to see Ubisoft destroyed. We want to see these companies that have already destroyed their franchises actually meet their karma and get the wrath that they've already felt by purchasing a terrible game, or just not even be able to enjoy the franchise they love anymore because it's been ruined by ideologues and posers. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing play out with this invasion in the gaming industry, where people are tired of just rating games a 3.9, where gamers are just waiting to see the gaming industry burn because we're tired of seeing the same terrible tropes of the current modern age of gaming that's lost in the idealisms of people that do not know how to write, that are casted as game directors simply based on their gender or racial makeup and don't have the ability to actually produce the content that we know are classics of the past. And I think that is the failure that's playing out in the gaming industry, and this is what's leading to the purge of a lot of studios, where they're going to be bought up by these foreign institutions, and these foreign institutions are going to purge them of the ideologues that were there because they are just not useful for a profitable company. The gaming industry is changing. We have invaders, and the invaders are being cheered on by the actual citizens of the gaming world, saying, hey, come in, invade. This place is terrible. But I wonder if there's going to be a poison pill in this invasion. Like I said, the invaders are usually not nice, but sometimes they are. And I think that's what gamers are hoping for from China and Saudi Arabia. We're hoping they're nice invaders and make games we want to see, and kind of are making games we want to see. We see this with Saudi Arabia and the purchase of SNK. They produce actually quality SNK game. Of course, we have Ronaldo in the game, but we can live with that. We can live with a random soccer player in the game. I think that's what people are saying about BioWare and EA. We can live with random soccer players in Dragon Age more than we can live with these non-binary conversations. But hopefully we don't get Ronaldo in Mass Effect. Maybe just his model, I will accept that, but not his actual character. But that's just my 2 cents You tell me what you think about the situation. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.